Woo! Now, today was a big and impactful day for the NBA. I'm not gonna lie, I was like, oh, what is all this stuff going on? I'm just thinking like, oh, maybe some tampering stuff or whatever. Cause I could have swore that I was like, oh man, I thought NBA free agency always happened. It seemed like it always happened on like a Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday or something like that. At least it has been like the last couple of years. Maybe I'm tripping. Anyway, other than my schedule being messed up in that sense, yo, we had a whole bunch of moves today, and I think it's really cool. And like, we haven't really had, I feel like, a free agency like this in a while, where it was like, it's like, even though we don't have like the big headline names, we got a lot of names or people that's like you heard about or you know about moving to teams in a way where you're like, oh, this actually could impact the team. It's more than just like, okay, this team picked this up guy up or whatever like that. I was like, and I know we're gonna get to like some of the bigger moves. I was like, but just like some small ones off the top of my head, I'm just like, oh, I feel like are actually like decent moves, like Karis LeVert going to the Pistons. I'm like, oh, I was like, yeah, he could be sort of like a little bit erratic sometimes and not like as far as like sometimes consistent, but I was like, he's a dude that could get his own shot where you could just give him the ball and just like, yo, just see where like get us some buckets or whatever like that. And I felt like the Pistons needed that. They needed a person who can get their own shot. Everybody else was really Cade Cunningham, and everybody was really relying on him. I was like, Tobias Harris, even though he had like a really solid year, we already know his MO. So LeVert isn't too afraid to put it up, and I was like, going to a coach that he knew he had in Cleveland with JB, that I think that was like, okay, he's basically gonna have the free range, and that's like especially that second unit to do what he sort of wants in that. I was like, Tyus Jones. I was like, look, I talk about Tyus Jones quite a bit here. I was like, I thought the Phoenix thing was going to be a good fit. It wasn't. With the Magic, I think now with a little bit more of what you're gonna get with the consistency of the team than what you sort of getting with Phoenix and all their stuff that they was going on. I think that this sort of works out. Plus, I was like, he goes to a team where it's like he done play with Desmond Bane. You got Franz and you got Paolo there. That's like, hey, look, he just gotta basically get them dudes the ball. I was like, take a couple jumpers, go to the back. Like it ain't gonna be asking for too much. I was like, but he's just be the dude that just sort of fit them all in their spots and just basically wait for them dudes to basically, oh, I need to pass out. Jones over here, make a couple plays here and there. That's all. I was like, it's needed. And I was like, also too, I was like, I think getting this team a couple more veteran pieces, because I was like, they got Anthony. I was like, they do got Anthony Black as like the point guard. But I was like, he's only been there for 2 years. I was like, Suggs. I was like, I think this gives you a better opportunity to play around with him being like sometimes at the point, sometimes like moving him at the 2 and stuff like that. Yeah, so I think they just need. I think with Bane and Tyus Jones, I think that helps out that team of just getting them some type of more adults. I was like, as we sort of seen a little bit in the playoffs with Oklahoma City, just having Hartenstein and Caruso there helped out them dudes that been through the playoffs and stuff. Same thing with Indiana with like Pascal, and you want to even say like T.J. McConnell and Miles Turner, who've been through some playoffs. So I was like, I think you're starting to see a lot of teams navigate that. Brook Lopez going to the Clippers, I just sort of think that's an intriguing fit, because I was like, I feel like Ty Lue's probably gonna do some weird thing where he probably gonna play him and Zubac a lot. Well, no, I won't say a lot, but at times, just to see how that works, because his Lopez can pull back and over here and shoot threes and stuff, and they're gonna really have an old ass team. We'll just see how that go, but I think that's really just more intriguing of like, oh, okay, he's not going back to the Bucks. We'll see what the Bucks kind of don't do, because that seems like where they're at this point. Yeah, I'm like D'Angelo Russell going to the Mavericks. I feel like this out of like the point guard options, I think this was probably the best route they could have went, just because he's the only one I feel like that could do Kyrie like fill it up. I was like, I won't even like besmirch Kyrie's name by saying like he could do Kyrie like things, but basically I'm just like, if you need D'Angelo to basically put up somewhere between 15, 20 points, I believe he can do so. I think that, while he didn't have like great with the Lakers, I was like, here's not somewhat the same pressure. But I was like, you really need somebody who can basically get their own shot while also shoot and stuff like that. I was like, I feel like you can fill in that role. Whereas like some of the other guards I thought might be better, would only seem to be better if you already have, like, I don't think they have enough scoring options. I think that's why D'Angelo Russell makes a, like he makes a lot more sense than like a Brogdon or whatever, or Schroeder, that I think would have worked if you already had either Kyrie or you would have had like another scorer at that point. Yeah, I'm gonna say I was like, Luke Cornett one is sort of fun, like weird one to me, just because I was like, you got a lot basically for, not basically. I think it works with like him being on the 7-footer with Victor. That I think to me is like in the mind of basically Chet and Isaiah, and that sort of like where you just need a big man that's there long enough to basically play against Jokic and Rudy Gobert and stuff like that. But you also don't really need him like the whole time. You get what I'm saying? You just need him basically be big when he needs to, and then he's not gonna be on the court because you're gonna have Victor at the 5. I like that did seem like a Spurs player. Hopefully this does better than how Zach Collins experiment that they was doing at the time. Yeah, I was like, we figured it was probably coming or whatever. Didn't see that maybe necessarily this trade, but I actually like it for both teams. The Nuggets trading Michael Porter Jr. to the Brooklyn Nets for Cam Johnson. From the Cam Johnson side, I was like, hey, he fits in seamlessly. He could play the 3, he could play the 4, depending on what matchups you want to do. I was like, Jokic makes everybody looks better. They also got Bruce Brown back in there as well too. I was like, a solid piece coming off the bench, and also being able to play with Jokic. We already seen how that looks. But with Cam Johnson, I was like 3-point shooter. I was like decent defender. Like I said, I was like you get about the same like height. So you're not. I was like, I think you're just getting more of a consistent player. Where it's like, and he's been also through with the Suns of playing in the playoffs enough that you're not over here just throwing somebody in here who don't have the experience or anything like that too. So I think I was like, that's a really solid pickup for what you could have got with Michael Porter. Like, yeah, you don't get the upside, but it's like we might not. Well, I'm gonna say with the Nuggets, you might not ever see whatever his upside is. Where it's like with the Nets, that's why I like it for Michael Porter. We'll get to see what he does, and if they keep Cam Thompson and him, I feel like, hey, we're going to see it fill up. We're going to see buckets. I was like, we're going to see basically what could have been if Michael Porter Jr. was the top pick without back issues. That's what I was like, we're going to get. We're going to see if he can finally realize or see how close we could get to like what anybody always thought about what his potential could be. Nets, basically the place where, hey, potential. We'll see. Then I was like after that, I was like, I'm sort of going backwards of like the bigger thing. I was like, the Atlanta Hawks. I was like, I think them transforming their team around Trae Young and actually sort of being like, cause I was like, if Trae Young been on like the chopping block for so many years now, that is kind of like, okay, what are they going to get rid of him? No, it seems like they're like, man, maybe not just yet. Maybe at some point they might still. But right now, I feel like they're sort of building a team around him. They're getting nothing but like big wing type players. I was like, last year they got Zachary Ricochet. I'm going to say Ricochet like this is AEW. You know who I'm talking about. I ain't gonna butcher that name anymore, but the 6'9" point guard from France that they drafted. But yeah, he's 6'9". I don't like Daniels, who came out and became basically the top defensive player. There, I was like, you got Kristaps Porzingis, 7-footer, that if he's able to play at least a handful of games, he's back there to basically help out basically when Trae Young gets beat. You also pulled off getting Nickeil Alexander-Walker, which is another 6'6" dude that is like basically I was like play defense And I think he'll have a better chance to also. I feel like he found a footing of scoring like a little bit with the Timberwolves, especially the last couple of years. But I feel like he can still give off a little bit more. And I think with this Atlanta team that they still need to find some more scoring. So I think he will still. I think he'll have a chance. He's not gonna start, but I think he'll have a chance to make more of an impact also on the scoring end than just the defense. But I think you're putting enough players and pieces around, and they can have a really fun lineup. I was like, where it's like, I was like outside of Kristaps being at the point at the center and Trey, you could do a mix and match of Daniels, Nah, Ricochet, and Jalen Johnson, all because they're all pretty much long, tall, lanky dudes. And they also signed Luke Kennard, which I feel like basically is just replacing what they lost with Bogey last year. And I was like, also, I feel like a little more juice. I feel like sometimes with the Grizzlies, they didn't play him at times. Like sometimes I felt like they was sitting him down, where it's like, why is he not playing? It was weird how they sort of like used him, and I feel like he basically just filling in the Bogdanovich, but he's got a little more juice to him in that situation. And in the East, I was like, to me, they could easily be six, and I was like somewhere in six and up in the East. So I was like Celtics, Knicks. I was like Orlando, Cleveland. I was like, I still think the Pacers make the playoffs because it's still the East. So I was like, yeah. So I was like, but I would put them above Indiana, to be honest. But yeah, I think they still, Bucks, just because you got to give Giannis the benefit of the doubt, even though that team is. But last but not least is the Houston Rockets, who, when they made a trade for KD, I really didn't feel any type of way about it. I was like, oh, okay, it's cool. But I was like, I didn't feel moved. I didn't feel like, oh, they're the team to beat in the West or anything like that. With some of their moves that they made, I feel a lot better now. Cause now I'm like, oh, okay, they have filled in a little bit, balancing out more this team with young players, with veterans now, with getting Dorian Finney-Smith and getting Clint Capella like an actual center as well. Which I was like, I was like, once again, he's not going to play all the time. I was like, especially with Jabari Smith getting signed that contract, I think they're going to do a lot more of him and Sagoon and Smith and Capella. But Capella is just a big man to basically take on a lot of those big matchups. And then in some situations, guess what? He's probably not going to really play on the team, which is fine. But I was like, now you got him along with their youth. I think that those players and stuff like that, like you sort of replace Dylan Brooks with Dorian Finney-Smith. You don't get I don't think you get the same tenacity and the craziness and that crazy that you need for the team. But I think you do sort of get it with basically somebody who could be a more consistent shooter while also playing nearly the same amount of defense as well too. Yeah, I was like, I think we'll see about how like the hunger and all that other stuff feel. You might get that from Thompson instead as well, but I think they was able to at least balance that out because I was like with the team what they got, and now I do feel a lot better with Houston. I do think that they still need to snag. I would feel better if they snagged one more scorer, just because you don't know what Cam Whitmore, if they keep everybody basically, Cam Whitmore and Reed Shepherd is going to provide them on that end. I was like, but I am happy about their opportunity because I was like, I do think there's a real chance that if those two give you anything solid, there's nothing to me that could really stop this team. But I would like if they got one more veteran type of score. Like it doesn't have to be somebody. It doesn't have to be like world like now like scoring, but this somebody can be like, oh, if he gets hot, yeah, he give you 20. But I was like, he might just give you 10 to 15, depending on how the game goes. Does he get into the lineup and stuff like that? That's all. I think that's all they really need. I think they got everything else with wing defenders and bigs. They got enough of that. They still got Steven Adams there, so it's like they got enough there. I think they just need another. I want to say another point guard, combo guard, something like that. Because I was like, Reed, you still want somebody. I think you want somebody behind Fred VanVleet there, and read. That way you ain't gotta rush read into it. Cam Whitmore, I was like, he's a star. He should be playing. He done been developing or whatever you want to say for years now. He should be ready to go and play and give him the minutes or whatever like that. He could fill up the Jalen Green role of athleticism and streaky shooter. Streaky scoring. I was like, you could give him that role easily. I was like, other than that, I was like, Jordan Clarkson went to the Knicks, and I was like, I'm not gonna act like I've been watching him in Utah. But I've been wanting the Knicks to get themselves a score. I thought when they did, he got hurt in that Bogdanovic over. So I was like, I feel like they finally got him, he got hurt. But Clarkson, I think, is like a decent dude. That's like, hey, you don't really need him to play point. I was like, you get another ball handler, another scorer. So it was like, hey, I was like, you got Josh Hart, you got Mikal Bridges, you got that outside of Brunson that could bring the ball up and initiate the offense. I was like, you don't have to have Clarkson for that, but I was like, another dude, it's fine. You still got McBride there. I was like, like I said, there's going to be a Hornet video at some point. But basically, Colin Sexton going to the Hornets, I really do like, because it's kind of like, yeah, he hadn't really had a chance to be, playoffs. And I was like, veteran, and depending on how you want to look at it, because, hey, he's been in the league a while, so you can't say veteran. But I do think that you get a solid player at the point guard position that is like, hey, we don't have to rely on some of these unproven dudes, or if you feel out of trust with them. If LaMelo gets hurt, you got a dude that's there that can at least be consistent there, where you don't have to worry about, like, all hell is broken loose, is on fire. And so I think it's a solid pickup, and that's sort of what I mean with these sort of things of, like, having a veteran type of, like, if the Rockets get like Malcolm Brogdon or whatever like that, to me, I'm like, okay, that's a solid guard with this team. I'm like, oh, okay, they might actually have like a serious threat. Because I was like, I was like, while I still would like a score, I was like, somebody can also put the ball in the basket, what I'm trying to say as well. I was like, to me, that would be a solid guy to have with their team, and to where you could be like, all right, everybody else can figure out their scoring. I'm just here to set everything up. Where Fred VanVleet, man, that's a lot to say. It's more of a scoring guard. Anyway, that's pretty much of like the day ones of NBA free agency. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see what keeps on going. There's still some the people that, Kuminga, where did he go? DeAndre Ayton, yeah, there's still players out there, or still smaller dudes. I was like, trades, I feel like what happened. We'll see. Everything up. I was like, look, in this new day of parity, everything is up for grabs. But until then, we'll see. Out.